Hey campers, George here, back in the man cave. Weather's not helping. Hopefully it's going to get better. What I want to show you today is, remember this guy? The Marbles Micarta fixed blade Nessmuk knife. I did a review on it a while ago. I don't really like the handle. It's too thin. About a week or so ago, I did a mod to my sword peasant knife. I made a wood handle for it. And I thought, oh, that was fun. Maybe I should do that to my Nessmuk. So I did. Let's check it out. The knife with the original scales on. Now, I don't have the correct pins in there, but I just wanted to show you this. See how thin that is? It's really thin. And I found it a little uncomfortable in my hand. And I decided to change them. So here we are in the South 40 man cave. I've taken the knife apart, went back to my piece of wood that I had that I got from Lee. If you saw my peasant knife modification, I'm going to be using the same wood. And I have them here, except the different colors are way more pronounced. See that? So I'm hoping that'll look pretty cool. I've drilled the holes, I marked it out, drilled the holes and everything. The problem I had, just like I always seem to have when I'm doing this, is the pins, these guys that hold the handles together. They're too short. So I went scrounging around at the local Ace hardware store and found me a longer screw, which will allow me to put it in without having anything sticking out. So that when I'm cleaning it up, the screws in that are not going to be sticking out and in the way. I did consider going brass. You can see these ones were silver. And I thought maybe brass would be better. The problem is I've got to find screws long enough. So that's going to determine whether I can do it or stick with the stainless steel. I have it all laid out here. So now I'm going to mount the wood together here on the blade, and you can always remember, safety first, wear gloves when you can, all the time if possible. I know it makes things a little bit tougher when you're dealing with small stuff, but safety first. Okay, so I've screwed it together, I've got it on here, and I've got to tell you I made it a little close on here, on the wood, on the dark wood. It's really close. I'm going to have very little room to work here. One of the things I was thinking of doing is in here is actually, if you look at the wood, it doesn't sit flush on the wood, on the actual tang of the knife. So I think I'm going to need liners. These guys, they had these liners in there. They just stuck together, and maybe use those. So I'm going to put it in the vise and start cutting it closer. You can see I've got a lot of extra room here. Got to cut these off, and then we'll start shaping it towards the blade. So I've got some coarse 80 sandpaper here. Going to start working along here and try and get as close as I can again. So I'm using a piece of dowel inside the sandpaper, and just so that I just stopped there so that I could make sure that my wood has not moved from where it should be. You can see here I changed to a wooden block. It just gives a more flatter surface. When I was here, that didn't matter. Now that I'm going this way, having the curved dowel doesn't give me as much surface coverage as I want. So So here you can see I've been shaping it at the back and along the top here. Got to decide how I want to shape the front, and then I've still got to remove all this inner piece here. I don't want to take too much off. There is writing and the marble's label there. Can you see that? I don't want to cover that, so I'm going to have to make sure that that shows. So we just keep at it. You got to just keep taking that wood off. I don't have that luxury of having a belt sander or anything like that. So everything I'm doing is by hand, which just means it takes longer. But you know what? I enjoy doing that. It's kind of like whittling for me. So I'm going to work some more on this, and then when we get real close, going to have to start rounding. And I'm trying to figure out how I want to shape these. And I got to tell you that the BPS handles on their knives I like. So I might have a look at theirs and maybe try and copy the way they do it. This is taking some sandpapering. I have noticed that the dark wood is harder than the light wood. Just got to keep going at this. See, here we are here. You can see the knife. It's coming together slowly. I'm at the point where I'm going to stop what I'm doing now and start to look at what I'm going to do with the shape of the handle. Oh, I was just putting away my EDC for the day. This guy from Rough Rider. Gotta say, one of my favorites they've ever made. It's the Blackwood. It's a really cool looking knife. Look, and it has a wood handle already. Here is, I believe this is the Adventurer. And I like this knife. Now the handle, if you look at it, this is pretty typical for BPS. The shape of the tang on this knife is not straight. It's not like this, okay? So you can see the differences. But what I like about these from this angle here, and you look at the handle, okay? It's slightly thinner up top and at the bottom, and it has a nice little belly in it. And it's a really comfortable handle. I'm thinking of a little bit deeper belly in it, thicker belly. The other one that I really like is this one, and this is the Condor Bushlaw, a wooden handle. Here you can see the exaggeration on that belly. See that? I like that. This is one of my favorite bushcraft knives. Probably, in my opinion, the best bushcraft knife you can get. Now they've come out with a new one which has a slightly different blade. It's a little bit longer and pointier, I think. I'm not impressed with it. Anyway, that's what I want to do with the handles. Let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. What did I do with my Bushlaw? Oh, it's getting late. There you can see what I'm talking about there. But I'm going to have to make sure that the belly suits the shape of the handle. Going to be interesting. Going to share a little, I want to say tip with you, just about when you're working on things. I've just spent 10 minutes looking for this guy. the original scale on it. It was on the table here, but I couldn't see it. I have tools and everything lying on top. Not a good thing. You should always keep your workplace clean. If you look right now, I got it in a mess. Not good. Voila, put everything away. When I even swept out some of the sawdust and everything. When I was doing that, I found this guy. It had fallen on the ground. I would have lost that. And that's why, keep your workplace clean. Things work better, and you'll feel good about it when you come to work in it. Especially when you're done, you clean up, you go away, you come back the next day, it's nice and clean. It's like a brand new start. It's a pet peeve of mine. Remember I was talking about the original scales, and I was saying I'm going to have to put a liner up and start. Well, we got this one apart, and I'm thinking of using this. So that's where we are now. Now I've got to start working on this. It's getting late. The temperature has dropped about 15 degrees. So I'm going to go back inside and working on getting the handle in the shape I want it. Now I lied, I couldn't go in. If I could get that shape that I'm looking for. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see what I'm aiming for there? Slightly thicker here, thinner at the ends. So you have that bulge. And I think that'll work. Which means a lot of wood's gonna come off. That sound familiar? The horror. So that's the plan. Okay, what I forgot to do, remember I said that there were gaps in between the wood and the tongue. I had forgotten to flatten out the wood that comes up against the tang. So I did that by, putting sandpaper flat on a flat surface and rubbing them. Got them smooth and I put them on and there was no more gap. But I still think I want the spaces in the liners. See that? I think that's a pretty cool look. Of course, putting the liners and everything in, my screws didn't fit anymore, so I had to go to longer screws. Yeah, I still haven't lived. It's freezing out here. When you change the handle, a handle fits correctly, it fits your hand correctly. When you grab it, a good indication is these fingers here should be touching the pad of your hand. If they don't, the handle's a little too big for you. I'm thinking that when this is rounded off, they'll be right there. Okay, back in the man cave. I had to go to the hardware store, needed to have a look for some of those brass things I was talking about to hold the handlers in. And lo and behold, I actually think I have found one that'll fit. So I'm hoping it's going to be enough to hold it together. But a funny thing happened this morning. When I was heading to the hardware store, I walked out the front and I was walking and I was looking at my lawn. I looked down and I found this. See that? It's been lying there. Obviously it was under the snow and whatever. And what it is it's a light. And it's rechargeable, USB connection on it. It's a little crusty. I can clean it up. It has all sorts of things. It has a belt clip, hang it on a thingy. It has a bottle opener, and it has this light. It even has a place where you can screw it in. It has the threads. It has a magnet on the back, so it'll attach to metal. And it works. I looked at who made it. There's nothing on it, and it works pretty well. You can see there, and it has low and high and flashy on it. Pretty cool. I scored. Back to the knife. I just rounded everything off for now. I'm gonna have to take a lot of wood. I don't want it to be too obvious. I need to take wood off the ends here and then have a little raise in the middle so that when I hold it, it feels comfortable. I made a little mounting thing here for the vise so that I can put the handles on the actual knife, hold it by the blade in the vise. You can see what I did. I got 2 pieces of wood, cut slots in there, put the blade in and tightened it up. So here you can see I used a rounded rough rasp just to get the beginning shape. The problem is that the screws are in the way. And what I'm hoping I can do is undo one screw and be able to get those level down, and then put that screw back on and take this one off. And maybe I'm going to have to tape it in the middle here. So hopefully you can see where I'm going, both sides. Actually, you can see the difference in the wood right there. So I flattened them down. See what I mean? There's still the bulge where the tape is. Flatten them down, and now I've got to do it over here again. Flatten them down, actually going to bring them down a little bit more. So that'll be the roughing, and then I'll have to use some heavy sandpaper, get the shape I want, and then we got to clean it all up. Just seeing if these are going to fit. They're just going to fit. I might be dropping them a little bit in so that they don't stick out. So that'll be enough. So here you can see how I curved it down a little bit more, so it's thicker at this end, but up here it's coming a little clearer with the bump in the middle. So now I've got to match up the other side. They're not as easy as it looks. So you can see I'm losing my voice here. You can see I've roughed it up now. The issue now is to get the shape of both to be the same. I don't want a big bulge. You want to be able to feel it. And that's what I'm looking for. I just want to be able to feel the slight bulge inside the palm of my hand. So I've done most of the roughing, and then I just used the heavy sandpaper to start cleaning it up so I can see how I'm doing. You can see now my fingers are almost touching there. Well, the reason is they're almost touching is I got to round these off way more. It's still too flat along the edges here. So these have to be rounded off more. And I would rather do that with some heavy sandpaper than with the rasp. It feels actually pretty good. It might need to go in a little bit more, lower it a little bit more so it's not as obvious. Something else I decided to do was, if you look here on the ends, it goes in and then at the end it comes out. Why? It's help your hand from slipping off. That's where we are. We're starting to get some shape out of it. The other thing, I made these come down more so it actually goes down. Still got a lot of work to do. We've got to round these off, and that's what I'm going to do now with sandpaper. Then when we get a lot closer, I need to glue everything together and glue it on to the actual knife and get it all lined up, and then make sure all the edges are matches. There's nothing sticking out or dropping in. So this is where we are right now. I'm pretty close. I still want to reduce this bulge just a bit. It actually feels okay, but it still feels just a little bit too wide. So I need to reduce it a bit, but I like the feel. So still a lot more to do, but now we're starting to see where we're going. So I've got it lined up, all the wood lined up on the liners, so that should be good. getting this rounded off more because it's still a little sharp. I need to make it less sharp there. I like the way it feels. So I'm thinking I'm where I want to be with the rough sandpaper and the rough filing and that. Now I have to do things like countersink here, because obviously with that angle, and do the same here with these. The problem is, even those extended screws, they're too short. But before I do anything like got to countersink this, put it on the blade and test them, because they may just be long enough. There's the brown, and there's the white. Back in the man cave. Had to make a run to the hardware store. Mary's pleased because that means she's got something else to sniff. The problem I was having is that the pins that I want to put in, I didn't have the right size, and I wasn't sure I could get bigger ones. You can see how I don't have the liners in there. And, it looks fine that way. It actually feels pretty good. Probably better without the liners, the feel. But I really want the liners in there. I think it finishes the handle better. And of course, you can't go to the hardware store and just buy one thing. And I know I have some projects coming up and I needed a speed square. I like using these. I'm used to using them and they're nice, quick and dirty. Did find another wood rasp that I want, which is a smaller one, because the other one's kind of big. But if I start working on smaller knives or smaller projects, I think this will be handier. Which means another project, because now I've got to get a board into the workshop to hang all my wooding tools. So as I was saying, I needed longer ones, and I did a rough guess, and I'm hoping these will be long enough. You can see there. So the long ones I bought fit here nicely. I had to go, I had a medium one, kind of in between the short and the long. For some reason, it was a random one that I must have accidentally picked up. And it fits here, but this is basically what it's going to look like. And I put the liners in. I just think it finishes the knife better. And it still feels fine. So now I need to countersink these. Once I have them countersunk and everything fits the way I want it to, going to take it apart and then clean up the wood with a really fine sandpaper, clean up the blade. There was, a couple of places I actually scratched it when I was sandpapering. So I'll have to clean up the steel. I can then oil it with some linseed oil and put it all back together, and we should be done. That's the plan anyway. Countersinking the handle. I ended up having to use one of my carving knives to give it a countersink, because when I tried to drill, it started to chip. So here we are here. You can see the blades. And I have to clean everything up now, and especially around here and around there. And what I'm going to do is I've got to the point where it just needs some fine tuning to get these sitting just right. I've got about as far as I can with it. I cleaned it up, cleaned up the handles and everything, mounted it, glued it all together. It's not quite as perfect as I'd like it to be. This is my first time really doing a big knife, a little bit fancier handle. I did the sword before, and that was pretty basic. This one was more of a challenge because I wanted to come up with my own handle. Working through it, I know now a lot more than I did before. And that is, I need more tools. No, besides that, the holes for the pins and everything became a real challenge. I'm not a modern day whittler woodworking person. I don't like to really use hand tools, electric hand tools and that sort of thing. I like to do it by hand because I like to whittle. Well, this was a challenge, and You know, things like drilling holes and that. I did it all by hand where I could. You know, I like doing that, but it's a real challenge to get it right and to get the pins mounted perfectly. I got it done, but I'd like it to be clean. Just me. But it's the first time and I learned a lot. I'm going to be doing this again. I really like doing this sort of stuff. You know, if you have any suggestions on things that I could do, woodworking projects or anything like that, I'd appreciate it. Anyway, let's have a look at the knife. So like I said, I oiled it, used boiled linseed oil, which I like to use on any wood. I do it on all my wood handles, get linseed oil. Every 6 months, 2 or 3 coats to stop it from cracking. You need to do the same thing. You want to keep putting that linseed oil on until it stops soaking in. Then you've got enough. Let it dry up, wipe it off, and it'll be good. So here is the knife done. And you can see that's the dark side. You can see I mounted it. You know, what I'm talking about is, yeah, these holes are not perfect. And I really struggled to line them up. And there's the light side. You can see it there. And here's what I'm talking about is trying to get these perfect. Extremely difficult for me to do. And I think it's because of the way I designed the handle, but I'm not too worried about it. You can't feel them or anything, and it worked out fine. And like I said, the thickness, I like this. I like that I added the liners here. They really bring out the blade, I think, and it shows the full tang. So it came out pretty nice. I will say this. It's comfortable. It's very comfortable. I really like this bulge idea. This worked out pretty good. And like I said, I learned a lot. One thing I do want to do, it does have a lanyard hole. I want to put a brass tube in there, maybe. It's kind of small, so putting the brass tube in there, it's going to make the hole even smaller, which I think kind of defeats the whole object. So, yeah, well, fun project. I really enjoyed it. So, and don't forget, like, share, subscribe. You know the story. Pretty sure I'll be back again soon. Got a walking stick I'm going to start working on. I just got to figure out how to draw the stuff I want to do on it. One other thing, the sheath. Now, the sheath is fine. It does its job. Okay. It just doesn't suit the knife anymore. I don't know what to do because I know I can't make a sheath. I wish I knew how to do leather work and that sort of stuff because I would make a sheath. If you know where I can find a sheath that'll work with this, plus I'm not a big fan of this. I like a dangler, and you know, if it can be a leather dangler, I think it'll just enhance it. The weather is not cooperating. Once again today we have snow flurries. Another thing I'd like to hear from in the put it in the comments. Do you like to see fast forward stuff? You know, like when I'm doing the sanding and that, do you want to see the whole process fast forwarded on fast? Or like I did this one where I chopped it up? Let me know what you prefer. I've looked around and tried to figure out what to do. And I'd like to know that I'm doing it so that people will actually watch it. You guys have always been a great support to me, and I do appreciate you all. So you all be safe out there, especially with them sharp and shinies. Just saying. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.